Yo, what's going on, guys? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for a bootleg review. This one for Artist of the Month, Ozzy Osbourne. This title, Ozzy Osbourne's Bark at the Moon Rough Mix on the Cannonball label. I don't think I've ever heard of these guys before or really know anything other than this title and the brother of this we'll talk about in a second too. But today we'll be reviewing this 2012 release, silver press disc, rough mix. You get one version of each song plus the two bonus tracks that were somewhat on the UK version of Bark at the Moon. One of them was anyway. And like I said, there's a fellow Cannonball release that came out at the same time. Bark at the Moon outtakes, 2 CDs on this one. I already talked about this last summer, one of the Black Sabbath update episodes. We explored this guy. So dig back in the past if you want to check that one out. Summer of 2023 did that. So downloads for this date back to at least 2006, maybe earlier. And we'll get into a little bit of history with Bark at the Moon album, recording session, my history with first hearing this. Not much to even tell you about. They're going to be pretty brief little history takes. As usual. Little vodka today. Yowzer. And a little orange peach mango juice, and not enough of that actually. That's a strong one. All right, off we go. Limited specs, like I said, on this. There's really just not a lot of details out about this release as far as exactly what dates or anything like that these were recorded. So your Bark at the Moon recording sessions that took place, I'm going to guess around the summer of 1983. Us Festival, May of 83. With the new lineup, I guess you'd say, right? Jake's there. Nothing from Bark at the Moon's on here. Not that they would be necessarily playing that material without it being finished yet. Not even sure if it was even begun to be recorded. But yet nothing on there. So safe to say summer, maybe into the fall, recording of Bark at the Moon. Band lineup: Ozzy, Bob Daisley on bass, Jake Ely on guitar, Carmine Appice on drums, Don Airy back on keyboards again. He's in and out of the band for forever, it seems like. Ridge Farm Studio once again, like the first 2 albums, in Rusper, England. So really that's all I got to tell you, the basics. My history with it, downloaded these about 10 years ago, along with those outtakes. Did them all on the same day. Transferred them to CDRs, to listen to them in the car and stuff like that. Really, so I listened to each of them once. You know, I really kind of preferred this one. We'll get into why in a few minutes. So I've been telling you this rough mix is a little better than I remembered it. So my takeaway from it were that the outtakes had some variations versus the album, and that everything was pretty much fleshed out. The rough mix, on the other hand, instrumentals and most songs, or a good amount of songs, with just scat vocals, Ozzy not really giving an all-out effort, maybe lyrics not done yet, has some melodies together, but, and you know, just not complete. Not really enough complete songs on there to make it worth visiting too much. So I did grab both of these about a year ago. And, you know, they're both silver presses. I collect everything Sabbath and early Ozzy related, soundboard, and especially if it's silver press. And you know what, this was a good one. Glad I grabbed it, because Disc Japan was really the only site that I knew that had it. There are a couple sites I never heard of that I noticed do have both of these titles. They're also a lot more money. I paid like 35 bucks for each of these, something like that. Or maybe 28. I think they might have been a little discounted, but the versions I'm seeing online right now are up around 48, 50 bucks, 60 bucks. But anyway, I got right into the outtakes when I got this last year. As you know, did a little thing about it already. As far as the rough mix, I've had this thing sitting around for a good 6 or 7 months now probably, and just got to it about a month ago. All right, time to throw it on, see what's up. I'm in the mood for some Bark at the Moon. If there's a bootleg related to that album, I'll go for that 3 times out of 4 probably. You know, so I was in the mood for some Bark at the Moon. Let me pull out the rough mix and see what's up with this thing. So I'm happy to report my memory, not entirely correct, Partially, but not really the case. Some scat vocals, but not too many, a couple songs. And I was right about there being some instrumentals on here. 3 of them. Turns out I really like them a lot. I think they're really worth checking out. Because they happen to be for songs I don't like particularly much, and the instrumentals just, I don't know, they're just better. I don't usually go that route, I can tell you. As best I can tell, all the versions on here, entirely different than the ones on the outtakes. And maybe, possibly, close to what's on the album in some cases. And in some cases, a few cases, there's some specs that are a little different about these mixes. Let's put it that way. It's worth tracking down, I would say, for 3 or 4 of the songs on here, maybe 5 even. So let's go track by track, see what's doing. Unlike the outtakes, the double CD outtakes, which didn't even have every song from the original Bark at the Moon, several that repeat, 10 versions of Now You See It, Now You Don't. This rough mix only has 1 version of each song, so that's kind of nice. Just basically a repeat of Bark at the Moon, 1 song each, in outtake or rough mix form. So let's get started. Let me get another sip here of this toxic concoction. All right, we're mixing there. Tastes a little better. Overall sound quality, I would say very good to excellent. A little lack of dynamics, a little bit flatter than their final release would end up having. Some difference in levels here and there, and that's usually a good thing. Some new things are actually heard in this mix, so it is a different mix. There's a couple songs where keyboards are louder or less volume to them, and guitars are louder. So a couple of cool little gem moments within this mix here. And as the title suggests, it's a rough mix, essentially finished, but an early sort of preliminary mix, and apparently sent out to whoever gets promotional things like this, I guess record execs and the like. In fact, track 1 is literally Ozzy himself coming on and announcing, here's my new forthcoming album, hope you like it, that's all, cheers. Only takes a minute or so, but that's really cool. You rarely hear things like that. I don't remember ever hearing that on like a rough mix, promotional sort of thing, I guess, where the artists themselves come on and tell you what's coming at you. So that's kind of cool. Getting into the songs. Bark at the Moon, track 2. You're not really missing much here. It essentially sounds like the record, but disappointingly no solos. So there's no guitar solo in the middle of the song. No solo taking the song out. So a little on the disappointing side. I think the outtakes version has, in spots, the keyboard playing the riff that Jake would play at the end of the song. It's kind of interesting, So, Bark at the Moon, just a curiosity only factor with that one. Now, you're no different. This is the one song on Bark at the Moon where I could say I like it noticeably more than I did back in the day. It just continues to grow on me, still. There's a heavier midsection here where the keyboards are lower and the guitar is louder. And you could probably say that overall with this CD in general. The guitar is louder than it would be on the final product. Excellent, drawn out, eerie synthesizer ending. And even at the end of the song, you even hear Ozzy say, I like that. It's drawn out, it lasts, I don't know, half a minute or so. Instead of the song just sort of ending in 5 or 10 seconds, it takes another 30 seconds with the synth just holding. And that's really cool. That's a good one on here for sure. Now You See It, Now You Don't. Like I said, you get 10 versions on that outtakes. And there's a few takes on the outtakes version that are better than the one here. And there's scat rough vocals. So you got some versions on the outtakes where Ozzy's not doing a great vocal performance, but at least he's trying, and it's similar to the final product. This is just scat vocals, like I said. So didn't really analyze this one too much to see if it's one of the 10 versions on this guy. I don't have that kind of time on me, but not missing much with that one. Rock and Roll Rebel, more scat vocals again from Ozzy. So I was right in remembering that in some cases. Again, like everything else on this disc though, excellent sound. The guitar, I think, often higher than it would be on the final album, like I already mentioned, and that's a plus, especially on a song like this. Jake's a little louder. It's cool. All right, now we get to some good stuff. And believe it or not, it's Center of Eternity. Now, I used to consider this one of my 3 favorites from Bark at the Moon when it first came out. Title track, Rock and Roll Rebel, Center of Eternity. I really think that was more or less because it was the heaviest thing on there. Besides those 2 great songs, Fastest, Heavy, but honestly, I never loved it. And through the years, I don't think it's aged too well. I went a long time without hearing it and heard it again, and really just a little more disappointing than I remembered. I kind of used to sort of like it. Now I really kind of don't. But the version here, it's instrumental only. And let me tell you, man, I really like it as just an instrumental. And again, I think Jake's guitar is a little louder than it would be on the record. I don't love that original Bark the Moon mix, especially on this song. Not a great one. It really isn't. It's just okay. It's a decent mix, but this one sounds better. Just because there's no vocals, I think for one thing, it's just the music's just breathing or something. And the guitar's a little louder. I usually don't prefer instrumental versions of songs that normally have vocals. This one, I do. Next up, So Tired. You're really not missing anything here. This just sounds like a demo version, rough mix version of the song. I don't hear anything different about it. Ozzy's vocals are fine. They're probably the final vocals, basically. Music sounds a little different, a little tiny bit stripped down in some way. I can't put my finger on. Not missing anything with So Tired. Slow Down. Here we go again. Probably my least favorite song on Bark at the Moon, right along with So Tired. And yet again, another instrumental that bests the vocal version to me. I'm kind of shocked with this one because, unlike Center of Eternity, I kind of used to like, I never liked Slow Down. Always thought it was the worst song on the album. And yet, I really like it as an instrumental. So there's another winner from this one. Waiting for Darkness. Always love this sound. That synthesizer that's in here is really cool. Kind of reminds me of some early 80s suspense horror movies like Escape from New York, Albert Finney and Looker, that kind of era. And on this one, excellent vocals from Ozzy, not just scat vocals. Jake does a little note run. I don't know if this is on the regular album, I just never picked it up or not, but a little note pattern thing behind all the other instruments during the middle section. If it's on the album, it's way in the background, so that's brought a little forward here. It's really cool. And better yet, there's some backing vocals towards the end of the song that aren't on the album, and that sounds really great. By the way, I always thought this was an excellent choice to be the final song on the album. Just the way it ends just sounds like an ender. So, all right, on to the last couple tracks. In the US, they were bonus tracks on your 2002 edition, which is the only version of this I got. And I never even realized until digging around for this episode here that this is a remix. So now I'm after myself an original version of Bark at the Moon and maybe try to get that European version too. Came close to getting that UK version once. But anyway, on to the tracks 10 and 11. You got Spiders. I never thought this was great. I never thought either of these 2 bonus tracks were great. They're okay. But you know what? Probably better than a couple of the songs that made the final album, Bark at the Moon. It's the same or a very close version to the one that made the album. One Up the B-side, just like Spiders. I always thought it was okay, but not great. Again, this version, though, is an instrumental, and again, I think it's better. I kind of prefer it over the version with vocals. Like, who would have thought? So final word on this disc, man. Some curiosity's sake only versions on here, a couple of them. A few that are virtually identical to Bark at the Moon. But it's definitely worth it for a couple of songs. I think you get a couple new things from Waiting for Darkness and You're No Different. Surprisingly to me, there are 3 instrumentals on here that I think are better than versions with vocals. Albeit they were 2 out of the 3 were songs I didn't necessarily like in the first place. I really dig them as instrumentals, and that's not usually how I roll. For example, the Master of Reality Deluxe Edition. I've listened to Children of the Grave instrumental a couple times. It's pretty cool, but I'd much rather hear Ozzy do the alternate vocal version. And it's not even really the alternate vocals that matter a whole lot there. Just prefer vocals usually. And in these cases, these 3 songs, these 3 instrumentals on here that I think are better without vocals, so that's Center of Eternity, Slow Down, and one up the B-side. So as instrumentals, they seem to kind of rock harder, and I think part of it's due to Jake being just overall higher in the mix than he would be on the final product. So probably not mandatory listening for everyone, but I'm happy to have it. I'm also happy to say that this whole product in general, better than I recall. You know, I thought it was all rough vocals and instrumentals. Turns out the instrumentals are great, and only a handful of songs with rough vocals, a good amount, have final quality vocals on them. So packaging, you already seen the front a bunch of times. When you open this guy up, inside the jewel, just the tray card, a couple of decent pictures on the inside here. That doesn't open to anything else. All right, behind the CD next door there, the CD kind of plain looking, as you can see, but it is a silver press. John behind that, crazy ass picture of Jake. I'm not sure if I've ever saw that one before. And you've already seen the back cover quite a bit. Guys, that's going to do it for now. Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon Rough Mix. Pretty cool title. Cannonball's the label. Go out and look for it. Just Google search it. You'll get all your options coming up. Not a whole lot of options came up with this one, actually. But it is still floating around out there on the interweb. And next up, guys, going to be doing Love You Long Time. Yes, that's a question. I had this one back when it came out and haven't heard it in at least 35 years. Let's revisit Sabotage, Power of the Night. See if it's this one, lofty expectations. Has to at least be a 9. This was a 9 or a 10 back in the day. So 9 or 9.5 for sure. To make me love it all this time. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode. Catch y'all later.